We're going to get going. Apologies, there was a little scrum out front, but we're all here. We have some other people joining us. Diana and Maria Callas all have one thing in common, and that is you made movies about all three of them. But what do these the films you have just made?
Well, thank you for being here. It's a very beautiful crowd. And thank you for having us film independent. Well, I think they were women that were tied, connected to, in two cases, to very big families, powerful people, powerful men in the three cases. And all of them were able to find their own voice and their own space, their own identity. They didn't depend on anyone or anything to be who they want to be. They struggle because of that. There's also an element of tragedy, I think, that is in common. And they were very strong voices that I think they defined somehow the second half of the last century. And my mom, of course.
And his answer was, quote, "Go beyond what's comfortable," unquote. And I think we are conditioned to avoid risk. And while that might be good for safety on the highway, it may not be good for artists, because then you're cautious and you might tend to be repetitive. And I'm wondering if this part felt like it was uncomfortable, that it was a leap into the unknown.
I agree with Stanley Tucci. Marcus Aurelius, I think, also. Yeah, absolutely. I was terrified. I was, and I believe that wholeheartedly, that we all must. I think it's what keeps us going, keeps us alive. I think it's what it is to be human, right? The human condition, to love, to explore, to learn, and especially for an artist, to be afraid is very, very important. And I was very nervous to portray someone like her, and that I respected, and that I also was in awe of. And I couldn't have felt safe to try this without Pablo and this team. So I also felt very, very fortunate that I was able to jump and have a lot of support along the way.
I want to How to Sing teach you something else, which is learning who Maria Callas was.
Yes, it certainly taught me that to be an opera singer, the technician she had to be. The emotional person, the technician, there was so much about it, the physicality, that just who she was, but also which arias she loved, that she wanted opera not to be elitist, that she wanted to connect to people. It made me just love her and understand why it would mean so much to her to lose her voice. It wasn't vanity, it was her communication to the world. And so, yes, it was very, and I didn't sing. I actually had someone in my life tell me I couldn't sing. I was in a relationship with someone who was very unkind. And it made me really shy about it, so I never really tried. And I say this because we've all had this in our life, where this, to find your voice. What is your voice? We all have a voice, and so you don't realize how much you get locked in life, and you never know. And then I found out with opera you can't fake opera, which I think when I stepped into this I thought maybe I'd be lip syncing a little bit more, but then So and then I found out it would be just my voice on set, because we didn't have anything else playing in order to record it, so it was like this, but nothing else, and just singing, which is truly my nightmare. That's the actor's nightmare. This was my my nightmare. So
it is, as I said, naked.
It was terrifying. He knows. I was scared.
Just to explain everyone
How does an artist in any medium manage if they feel a calling, that it is inherent in their being that they have to do something? And if your life is largely defined by how others receive your creative work, what does that mean when you no longer can create it?
I think I can only speak for myself, and my experience of being an artist is communication, and so it's why I was so moved when we walked in, and it seemed you responded to the piece, because we all work so hard, and it's why we make a piece. It's why all those days of thinking of life and her life and those things that bring real tears to your own eyes, and you really think about the pain you experience, and you hope it connects to someone else, and you're kind of asking the question, do you feel the same? Does this make, do you question these things too, and do you feel the same? And that's so much of how I've gotten through life, is feeling often alone, but then in this communication I feel less alone, and able to explore aspects of being human together. And so to lose that, of course, would be hard, but it's very different. Her life, she really only had her voice. And I've been very fortunate to have family and if everything my art was taken from me, I'd have other purpose and ways to express my communicate and love, and she really didn't have, this was her life, this was her, and she was born with such an extraordinary gift. Her voice was it was something else. And speaking of the operas, the last song she sings, if you do go home and read the words to Visitarte, because it means I live for art. And they're beautiful, and she's asking God about why this is happening, and what is life, and what is she given her life. So if you read them, you understand them. I think for her it was it was emotional and spiritual, and it was something beyond my understanding of art.
I don't think you've ever played
It brought me, I think I'd always had I feel like you're talking about your whole life and you start thinking about your childhood. Well, I started working because my mom wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to work and help her with some finances and things, and I kind of came into this rushed, and I got I always struggled. I loved communicating, but I didn't love being public. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was only recently, and I think it's because of Maria, that I kind of finally embraced being an artist. Because I think my whole life was, I don't know, and I also spent quite a few years recently away from it, and unable to work like this and be away from kind of the family and this communication, and so she brought me back and helped me remember, and I'm very grateful for it.
That's amazing.
And I think it was only recently, and I think it's because of Maria, that I kind of finally embraced being an artist. Because I think my whole life was, I don't know, and I also spent quite a few years recently away from it, and unable to work like this and be away from kind of the family and this communication, and so she brought me back and helped me remember, and I'm very grateful for it.
That's amazing.
And I didn't sing. I actually had someone in my life tell me I couldn't sing. I was in a relationship with someone who was very unkind, and it made me really shy about it. So I never really tried. And I say this because we've all had this in our life, where to find your voice. What is your voice? We all have a voice, and so you don't realize how much you get locked in life, and you never know.